Assalamu alaikum, friends of BookBytes. And for this evening's show, I've got a genre that I really, really appreciate. We all know how much I love memoir. This evening, I'm looking at No Regrets by Mr. Ahmed Gora Ebrahim, who needs little introduction as one of the foremost professional soccer players of his time. And here's the thing that I experienced while reading this book is sometimes some of life's deepest, darkest moments position us to dig deeper and to really find perhaps a strength that we didn't know we were capable of. And this can be said for almost every encounter in life. And I really, really experienced that reading No Regrets. For those who may not have heard of Gora Ebrahim, I like how the blurb actually states it. When he walked off the field in August 95, having been prematurely substituted in a live televised football match at the peak of his career, Gora knew it had run its course. He slipped off the captain's armband and cut a frustrated figure as he walked off. The flame had been put out. What happened in the next few moments shocked his family, friends, and the football fraternity. It changed his life forever. Born and raised in Vereniging to a mixed-race couple in a little town called Roshni in 1966, his football journey crisscrossed with his love for literature, education, and people who would see him play his football and teach at schools that he couldn't have imagined growing up. Mr. Ebrahim, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to finally be able to pick your brain on this beautiful memoir, this very courageous memoir, let me say. Mubarak on your journey and on being able to document it. And of course, welcome to BookBytes.
Thank you, Shafinaaz. Thank you for having me on your show. I'm grateful, as always, for getting the opportunity to share my story. That you find it inspiring, inspires me to want to write some more. So, yes, thank you. I'm happy
Well,
to be here.
I imagine after having read it that there's a lot more where this came from. Not that you were hamstrung in your writing, but definitely that this was the volume one of your life because you always say you never know when you meet a person just what happens behind the scenes or what has happened behind the scenes to make them who they are, which is why I call memoir such a courageous act, right? I remember in the past when we've met, when you were principal at one of the schools, you always mention writing. And so to be able to see this physical copy in my hands, to be able to read it is really nothing short of, magic. Tell us about your writing process. Where did it all begin? Where did you decide that this was a story you finally needed to put down?
Now you will read when I start off my story that I feel that I became noteworthy at school once I discovered books. I struggled at school when I was in grade 1, grade 2, in the formative years of my education, because I struggled with words and I struggled with numbers. And then I discovered reading. I had a teacher then, Mr. Yaqub Khan, and he put a book in my hand and he said, listen, you need to read Ahmed. That's as they called me. In Roshni, I'm known as Ahmed and not as Gora. So through my reading, I overcame a lot of the challenges that I found myself experiencing at that time. So literature has always been a part of what I've become. And when I get to high school, instead of studying, I read. When I get to college, when everyone else is studying for the exams, I've got copies of all sorts of authors in my hands. And of course, my favorite authors, some of them at the time who really influenced my writing were the Indian authors. And well, for some reason, the names just don't come now. R.K. Narayan and Nepal, those were the guys that really inspired me. So yes, I read a lot of the English authors, but the Indian authors were the ones that really inspired me.
And at the time, I think it needs to be said, there wasn't a lot of material that we could identify with. So we were relying on what was coming from the subcontinent and that sort of thing. Now, if you look at your journey, I mean, it's not far into your life that your love of soccer your talent is honed. And obviously your father is a huge influence, plays a huge influence in the development of your soccer career. Talk to us about the beginning of the soccer journey. Where did it begin? Talk to us about some of that.
So my dad and my family. We pioneers of Roshni. We pioneers of Verenigen. My dad was a founder member of the very well-known club called Verenigen Old Boys, and Verenigen Old Boys really put Roshni on the map in that it went out and really achieved outside of the things that were other important than it was football. So football dominated the landscape at the time, and Verenigen becomes fairly well known because of football. And my dad is a founding member, the captain of that team, and he sits around the table. We sit around with him, and he regales the stories of the great Verenigen Old Boys. So he plants the seed of playing football. And as I grow up, I want to be like him. I want to be like the stars of Verenigen at the time, people that I knew. It wasn't as it was right now. Right now, we want to be like Messi and Ronaldo and all of those players that we see on TV. That time, the heroes were ones that we could touch. They were in the community. We saw them pretty much all of the time. And those were the ones that inspired me. So I want to be like them. I want to play on gravel grounds. I want to be talked about. I want to do well. I want his approval. I want the town's approval. So I really, really try my best at football. And be that as it may, I excel at football. And, at the time, I must share with you, Shafinaaz, if you were an academic at school, you were noticed. If you a very good athlete or soccer player at school, you were noticed. And if you weren't one of these two, you could very easily slip between the cracks. So I was fortunate because I was both of them. I was fairly good at school and I could play football. So I was one of the notable people at school. Happily so.
That's fantastic. But what were the opportunities like? Because, I mean, we're talking about a time when access to the sport or even the potential to get beyond the ground that's available, the opportunities that are available within our apartheid ghettos, wasn't all that sort of, all that great. So what were the pitfalls at the time?
I dream an unrealistic dream at the time. When I was in grade four, for example, standard two, Mr. Wykan asked everybody, what would you like to be? And everybody says, the class goes, I'd like to be a lawyer and I'd like to be a doctor. And that's how it goes throughout the class. And it comes to me at the end, who was sitting right in the front. And I say, Mr. Khan, I'd like to be a pro soccer player. And he says, Ahmed, you mean you'd like to be a professional soccerite? I said, yes, sir, that's what I'd like to be. And at the time, I can't really see what a professional soccerite looks like because they weren't really professional soccer players. They were part-time professional soccer players, semi-professionals, but not in the way that we know it right now. So my dream is a very unlikely dream. But I do quite well at football. And when I get to standard eight, grade 10, as we know it right now, I break into the Verenigen Old Boys first team. And that's the team that plays in the Federation League to date, from what I know. And I may be bragging right now. I'm not so, and I don't mean to do that, but I could be the youngest ever professional soccer player. And they don't have documentation, but at 15 years old I was one of the first and the youngest professional footballers that played in the Federation League. At the time, the Federation League was extremely strong with players that went on to become huge figures in professional football. So I excelled at football. But football was a dream that could not be maintained. So when I played professional football, and I'm playing for Vereniging All Boys at the time, and I'm going for training at 7 o'clock in the evening, and I come back at 9 o'clock, and I do start doing school homework at 10 o'clock in the evening, so that I can have everything done for the next day. It's not realistic. And my teachers tell me, Ahmed Gora, you should not be playing football. You should be studying. You do very well at school. You should be looking to do something, to become something worthwhile, someone notable, someone who can go to university, because university was quite a big thing. But soccer dominates. Soccer is a passion. Teaching is something. Going to school is something that we had to do. Football is something that I wanted to do, and there was a big difference. So I always kept the dream alive, and as I get older, the dream becomes more realistic, because there's a bit of money in the game, there's a bit more, the landscape changes, and as the landscape changes, the way my opportunities start changing as well. But the passion, the flame is always there. I study, I play. I play, I study. It sort of goes hand in glove.
Well, your commitment is exemplary because I read about the time when you were at Teachers College and you actually traveled from Pretoria to Lenasia. You join a training group there, and then you come back in the morning for your lectures. I mean, at the time, this, like you say, was over an hour's journey every evening or every alternate evening and morning. Surely that paid off. That is what paid off later on.
Now, I want to say that that was unlike that. I really didn't want to go to become a teacher in the way that I became a teacher. I didn't see myself going to college at all. My dream was to go to Wits and become an attorney, which was my first choice, or become an English teacher. And I loved history, English and history. Those were my two passions at school. So, but because of politics, I cannot go to varsity. In my last year at school, I don't produce the pass that gets me to varsity because of my football commitments. And then I go to college, and 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 at college I find a home. I find a home with people who are like me. They come from different parts of the world, or different parts of the country. They have similar issues. I see a lot of myself in them. They have difficulties. They didn't care how they dress, or the girls, the boys, and I find a home. But it also presents a challenge of playing football, professional football. And in comes Bluebells United, who's a big club in Lens, and they say, we'd like you to play for us. And it seems like a challenge an insurmountable challenge. We can't do it. It's just too far. But they find a solution. They get a lift for me every day, and I sleep over, and I come back to college the next day. And so Monday to Thursday, I'm in Lens, and Friday afternoon, I hike to Roshni, and then I stay Friday evening, Saturday evening at home. And then Sunday night, I'm back at Rez again. So for the first year, I sleep one night a week at Rez. And of course, it has a a really a really negative impact on my studies. I write a sub in my first year. I write a sub in my second year. I write two subs in my third year. I write a sub in my final year. But I'm traveling the country. I'm meeting people. I'm going to Cape Town. I'm on flights. I'm in the Ilangeni hotel. I'm doing all of these things. I'm at college. I'm battling to get through but all the time, believe it or not, I've got a book next to me on the plane, in the car, wherever we go. I'm reading, whether it's Dean Koontz, whether it is Sidney Sheldon, or any one of these. I've got a book
But
next to
Mr.
me.
Ibrahim, now we have to really look at the overall picture. You've we can talk about the challenges, but you maintain success both in your teaching career and in your soccer career. Let's talk about the pivotal moment. I want to hear about the euphoria of playing for the big name games, what it's like to be out there with a 100,000 strong crowd cheering for you. But also talk to us about those big name games, the euphoria, but that pivotal moment where everything changed. Talk to us about some of that.
So football, football is, it's easier to become a doctor. It's easier to become a scientist. It's easier to become any of the other things. But when you're an athlete, you have to be in you have there has to be that synergy between the mind and the body, and you need to know exactly what you're able to do and what the others can do and what more you can do. So there's always that battle within. And also to be a professional footballer or an athlete playing at the highest level is tough because you always challenging yourself to be better than the day before, and it's not always possible. So when I become a footballer at the highest level, not only am I pushing myself to the highest limits physically, I also encounter the mental challenges that go with it. You play on a Sunday afternoon, like now, on a Sunday evening, like now. I could be coming in from Durban, having played for Pirates in front of 50,000 people, and then I didn't have a good game. And tomorrow morning, I've got to go to school. So the mental part of it is you need to pick yourself up all of the time, and you can't have a bad game. And then you're always working on your weaknesses, and the pressure to stay at the top, the pressure to produce your best performance every week, um, it cannot be sustained. You're looking not to drop the ball, but you are going to drop that ball. And when I go to Pirates, I have difficulty there because Pirates cannot see me for who I am. I'm an Indian Muslim player at Pirates. Pirates don't know how to deal with me. They don't know, they can't cater um, for my different eating habits, or for my prayer, because I'm different. They don't know where I come from. All they know is that I'm a good footballer. But everything else is a struggle. Everywhere else, like for example, we go to Africa. We stayed 5 days in touring Cameroon and Brazzaville, the capital city of Congo, and all of those places. But there's no food for me. So I'm eating bread and I'm having avos and I'm eating this. And then I'm expected to perform in front of 50, 60,000 people. But it all goes pear-shaped at Pirates when they realize that I realize and they realize that I should not be there. And then I leave Pirates and I have an operation, and then I'm in limbo for a while, and then I get an opportunity to go back to playing at the highest level in Tayando for a club called Rabali Blackpool. And at Rabali Blackpool, I'm quickly back at my best. I've got that captain's armband and everything's going well, but we're fighting. There's a lot of other things that's going wrong in the club. We're not eating well, we're not sleeping well, we're not players are not being paid well, we're not being treated well. It's all of those things. And the fact that I'm wearing the captain's armband means that I need to take these things up to management, which wasn't my job. It was actually the job of the coach. So the coach can't do it, and I'm surprised that the coach is not sticking up for us. And so our relationship start going downhill. But I'm producing the goods on the field. The team is playing well, and then we get to that fateful match where we really have to win. Up until then, our performances have been good. We've been unbeaten. Things have been okay. We go into the stadium and we're in Thoyando on a Sunday afternoon. It is like 40 degrees. It is it is a boiling pot, and everyone is there's an expectation because the club is done so well. So we go into this arena, 40,000 people, maybe even more, and there's ululating and all sorts of things. And of course, I do the toss. We're playing against some Tata Bucks. Everything is okay. We're busy settling down. And after, I think, 19, 20 minutes, he summons me to come off. And I come off and I'm not happy. But in that moment of my anger and my disappointment, there's nobody there to say, Gora, it's okay. Put their arm around me and say, listen, these things happen. For whatever reason, he pulled you off. He will explain to you later. There isn't that. I try to go off. I come back. There's some words being said. And basically, I'm
So, what was the
getting.
reason?
So it was some banter. He moves away and he goes to the end of the fence, and there's some words that were said which I didn't get, but from the body language, which I could read very well, um, it wasn't it wasn't something that I liked. Without going into exactly what he said. So, and then the wheels come off. There's a moment of madness, and the next minute, I just know that it's all over. No, I lie. I knew when he pulled me off that I didn't want to be there 600 k's away from home, with Shazia having been born in Rizwana, Munira expecting Rizwana, me 600 k's away, living my dream, pushing for my dream, 28 years old, about to turn 29. It was over. But like they say, like that Welsh poet, and I forget his name right now, he says, do not go quietly into the night. So I just didn't go quietly into the night. I went with a bang. Oh, I forget his name right now.
Dylan Thomas.
Dylan
Rage,
Thomas.
Rage
There you
Against
go.
the Dying of the Light. Absolutely one of my favorites. Well, so this I wouldn't say is the end. In many ways is the spark of a new beginning of your life. You just don't see it at the time, and so many of us have that experience where life bogs you down and you just don't see beyond it. But there's so much more ahead. There's so
So
many people who believed in you through your journey. That stands out for me. Let's pay
I,
tribute.
I want to say, Shafinaaz, that football was my dream. Football has always been number one. Um, I'm 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 a fairly good teacher. I'm appreciated, and over the years, 30 odd years, I like that part. But education was never my number one. Football was always my passion, and but I also realized when that incident takes place in Toyando, that football was for me, and but education was for my family. So when I come back and I start and I refocus, I reinvent myself. I have to kill the dream, basically, and become something else. And when I do that, I'm able to carry my family with me through some of the best schools. I'm able to teach at some of the best schools, meet some wonderful people in education, in politics, all sorts of things, and all sorts of areas which I never thought I would meet these people. And I leave behind the football world, which is a murky world. It's sort of dominated by shoddy characters, people who are not always happy for your success. There's that envy, and it's everywhere. There's always that competition to want to do better. So I leave that world and I enter a completely different world, in a world that I think I always somehow belonged, but I never really gave it the time of day. So education, in a way, admittedly, it does save me.
You make some very strong comment on the education system in our country, how our community schools are sort of administered, and some leadership and management commentary that comes through the book very strongly based on your experiences. Do you want to touch on some of that?
One of the things I'm a proponent of. So I'm a teacher. I'm culpable for a lot of the things that I don't believe in the way we do things. But one something that happened close to home that makes me really put my hand up and say we need to do things differently, although I don't have the power to do it, is that my daughter in grade 1 has a horrible year. She has a horrible year with a teacher that really doesn't understand her. And so over the years, I understand that Rizwana wasn't the type to be herded like everybody else. She had different skills. I did see it. I mean, I was already over 15 years in teaching already when that happens to Rizwana. But it needed to hit home for me to see that not all of them can be herded and shepherded in the same direction. They have different skills, they have different abilities, but the education system does not do justice to them. So I see things differently. I want to do things differently, but I don't have the power to do it. And it's not an indictment on our system. I think it is an indictment on the schooling system in many countries in the world where the individual cannot be seen for the skills that they bring, that they have. But we need to teach them the things that we feel is important. And sometimes they have other skills. And to have 30 or 40 in the classroom, we're not going to have, it needs to change, and it's not going to change, unfortunately.
That's interesting because I know that you have been at the forefront of so many sort of progressive changes at each of the spaces that you've been in. So I'm hoping for a little bit more, a sort of positive reinforcement for the future.
So education, I always used to tell my teachers, and more than anything, curriculum is one thing, but curriculum is not really the real education. The real education is connection, right? If you're able to connect with your children, it doesn't matter what you actually teaching them. Um, Oh, so actually, it does matter what you're teaching to them, but whether they're going to get it or not depends whether you connect with them. And when you connect with them, they're going to love you. You need to connect. You need to give something. You need to give something of yourself to the learner. It's a bit like writing a book, right? I write my story, and I write my autobiography. But to write my autobiography, I have to be honest. So when I become, the more honest I become, the more vulnerable I become. So teachers need to be that. They need to connect with their learners. And just too many teachers that don't connect with their learners. So real teaching cannot take place. Um, so one of the things I'm really big on is these little skills, the ones that I'm telling you right now, connection, patience, being just. These are the things that can override all the things that may not go well in the classroom. There's just enough. There's not enough teachers that have that. And when I was a headmaster at well, Houghton Muslim Academy and Apex, that's what we wanted from the teachers. We wanted them to give more of themselves and not remain aloof from the children, because once the children see you as human, they can touch you, they can feel you, and they know you make mistakes, they eat out of your hand. There's just not enough teachers like that. But that's not all that I say in the book. I say a lot more about the systems. And I also speak about the difference. Sometimes we speak about a schooling difference between an educational system and a schooling system. Is there a difference between it? There absolutely is. Um, we've got to be much more than just schools.
I hear you. I absolutely hear you. I think that, there's a lot of gems in here taken from your life experience, from your observations, but also it's exactly as you say, whether you're a teacher or as a writer, that vulnerability comes through in your absolute honesty. I was humbled reading this. I think that it will resonate with a lot of people who experience different challenges in life. But at the same time, I just want to say congratulations on this output and thank you for giving us your time this evening. I know that books can be obtained directly through you. Am I correct?
Yes, yes, for now. And some good news. Last week I had a distributor, someone that really wants to market my book and put it on all the shelves throughout the country. So that's what I'd really like to do. I'd like everyone to read it without having to become a millionaire through my books. If it happens, it's okay. It's not a bad thing. But what I really want is everyone to read it, as many people to read it as possible. So the good news is that yes, I have a distributor, and they're going to distribute it to all the major stores in the country. And for that,
Well,
I'm
that's
very
absolutely, absolutely fantastic. I look forward to seeing this on all the shelves and for more readers to get their hands on a copy. You heard it from Mr. Ibrahim about No Regrets, his life story. And that's it from us this evening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
welcome. Salam. Thank you, Shilman.